21 bosses with their own weapons. No intro needed, here we go. The first boss is none other than the overfed dog, Vordt of the Boreal Valley. Now, I don't think he's ever been described as a particularly hard boss. I in fact refer to him as an enemy with a little extra health, so you won't believe how happy I was when I took a peek into his soul and found his hammer and Pontiff's left eye. I'm not gonna question how that got there. Either way, these are both really powerful items, and outside this fight, the Great Hammer can actually deal frostbite damage, so I might try it out at some point. Anyways, I opened with a little ka-chow to his nuts, which hurt him a lot, and somehow my follow-up hit here, so this time I'm not gonna complain about Dark Souls hitboxes. Since the fat dog was still recovering from the beating, I decided to try out my weapon art, which just turned out to be Perseverance, which was a letdown. So I decided to just get over it and hit him with a charged R2, which dealt insane damage. I swear to God I never upgraded this, it's just an S tier weapon. However, the S tier weapon doesn't live up to be anything close to the S tier boss, Curse Rated Greatwood, who gives us the legendary Hollow Slayer Greatsword and Arstor's Spear. Thank God I didn't pop out with that name. Anyways, both these weapons are mediocre at best and toothpicks at worst. Both have special effects though. One deals 20% more damage to hollows, which is cool I guess, and the other gives 30 HP every time you kill an enemy, which is actually pretty useful, though not really for this fight because you are not going to catch me going out of my way to kill these random dudes. So I'm gonna just bomb rush into his crotch and start spamming my spear into his weird little white sack. He got staggered pretty easily, so I decided to switch to the greatsword and tickle his legs a little bit, which made him mad, so we decided to sit down, which broke the ground wide open. From there, I just repeated the same old strategy until all the sacks were gone and I could live my life without worrying about being sat on. Following the trend of mediocre bosses though, we have the Crystal Sages. Crystal Sage? I don't really care. Either way, we have to take a look at our weapons, which just so happen to be the Crystal Sage's Rapier and the spell Crystal Hail, which is really good if you want to not hit your enemies. It is what it is though, because we still have to use it and I have a pretty good idea for a game plan, but we first have to make it through the initial phase, which is, as always, incredibly easy. And after bullying our boy for roughly a minute and a half, he summoned his buddies, which is where all hell breaks loose. Man, I sure do love getting touched by big blue spears from 4 different angles. However, this is where I can deploy my strategy, where I basically pop the spell, then let it kill the clones, though that wasn't really working well, so I had to switch back to the rapier and just finish him off because I'm not even going to try with the magic. I got a hit in with it, so that's all that matters. Anyways, I'm done with this script. Here's me dealing the final blow. Now, we have 2 options. We can either A, go up to the Abyss Watchers, or B, the Deacons of the Deep. Now, I feel like to keep viewer attention, I should go with the Watchers, but my 3 brain cells are telling me to go with the Deacons. I figured I'd get the bad bosses out of the way so we can get bangers lined up back to back. Now, calling this a boss is already a stretch, so I was curious what weapons we get to use, and it was a candlestick and the spell Deep Soul, which sounds like something my therapist would say to fix my feelings, though I wouldn't really know because I've never had one. Anyways, I started by running in and beating the crap out of this red guy with the candle, which is unfortunate for him because me personally, I wouldn't take that disrespect. Either way, it was a good time to use our spell, which did a huge amount of damage. Is what a magic glazer would say, because I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here, but there was 0 output with this thing. Anyways, I said screw it and finished off the Archdeacon guy because I'm just done with this. Now, with that out of the way, we can move on to one of my favorite bosses of all time, the Abyss Watchers. Now, these dudes' weapons fall right in line with their placement on my tier list because these are some of the coolest items in the game. First up is the Farron Greatsword, which is just your average Ultra Greatsword. I don't really know why they don't just call it the Farron Ultra Greatsword, but whatever. However, two-handing it lets you parry, which I'm absolutely terrible at, so we'll be avoiding that mechanic entirely. The second weapon is literally just Artorias' Greatsword from the first game, which you already know is broken because you can literally just use his jump attack. Now that we finally have 2 good weapons, I'm going to try to use both evenly throughout the fight, starting with Phase 1, which was an absolute power trip and had me feeling pretty good about myself the way I melted through half his health bar in the course of 20 seconds. From there, I let his buddy do some fighting so I could heal, then go back in there to finish him up and begin Phase 2, where I swapped to the Wolf Knight's sword to spam jump attacks like never before, and ultimately take down the guys who really enjoy killing each other. Now, when I saw that Wolnir had a boss soul, I was really confused because what's FromSoft gonna do? Give him a sword or something? Oh wait, they did? Looks like you get Wolnir's Holy Sword, which he literally never uses, and the Pyromancy Black Serpent, which is what some people call. Now, both of these shouldn't really need too much explanation, so let's play the game, try to hit the boner hand with the Pyromancy. Can he get there? Oh, hey, he got it! Now, I kind of forgot how much of a gimmick this guy was. We broke his first gold chain and did 5,100 damage, then did the same thing for another 5,300 damage, then used the Ash of War to finish him off, which looked pretty badass, I'm not gonna lie. However, the Skelebaner was down, and there's only one right place to go from here, the Smoldering Lake. Either way, we're down here to meet up with an old man who invited me to his house for some candy. We of course have to come prepared with the old king's great hammer and the chaos bed vestiges, just in case he tries to pull anything funny, and he immediately tried to spit in my mouth, which is some freak behavior. So I threw an orb of fire at him. From there I popped the weapon art and began going beast mode on his backside, where he had a pretty hard time grabbing me. I guess that's what happens when you don't stretch before benching 415 pounds, and I can speak from a first-hand experience because that's my working weight. Now I can finally stop edging you because we're finally ready to take on an Orlando, and first up is my boy Pontiff, who should have been the final boss but got demoted because someone at FromSoft thought it would be a bad idea. Just because my man got done dirty doesn't mean we can't do him dirty by ripping him to shreds with the Great Sword of Judgment and Profane Greatsword. If you can't tell the difference, one's fire and one is just the purple version of Red 40. Also, when I entered the fight, I realized I'd been invaded by Ash, so hey, Ash, screw you. Anyways, I opened with a thrust from my thick greatsword, though I quickly rolled away because some people don't really like that. From there, I ran right back and dodged literally every attack because I remember fighting Rilana almost a year ago. That's kinda crazy, what the heck? After all that, I hit him with a little purple to get an easy phase 2 transition, where I continued to run around like a raccoon dodging all the little pokes he was trying to do to me. I think he was rage baited pretty hard though, because from there I was able to run in and finish off my glorious king. Now we're gonna step back from this area for a second because we're heading down into the sewers to take on Yhorm, who just so happens to be a gimmick boss that requires you to use the Storm Ruler, or so Miyazaki thought, because we're taking him on using Yhorm's Great Machete and Yhorm's Great Shield, which is one of the greatest lifesavers here. See, while the damage number is a little bit on the low end, it's still technically doing damage, which means we can technically beat him. So I decided to turn on my white girl music playlist and circled around him for about 5.5 minutes, constantly rolling and going for his arm specifically because that's the best way to build up stagger. And oh boy, when he finally kneeled over to let me stick it in his face, I got to see his health bar finally show some yellow again, which made my dopamine levels spike and my testosterone levels plummet. From there, it was effectively the same fight but with some fire, so I continued to dodge and poke until the giant went down. Next up, we have a pretty interesting fight, Aldrich, Devourer of Gods. Now, when I say interesting, I'm not referring to the blob that moves around the room and shoots arrows at you, because that's really boring. I'm talking about the weapons we get, the Life Hunt Scythe and the Dark Moon Longbow, which means I don't get to have a melee weapon, so I'm gonna have to learn how to use a bow, and after about an hour and a half, I finally had a winning run. I started by shooting my shot just to get rejected and nearly plowed by a huge purple beam. However, he tried to use an arrow downpour on me, which let me just sit there and use all the skill I have to land these shots while he just stood still. Now, this fight ran me up nearly 8 minutes, so I waited towards the end to use the scythe, which was doing about the same amount of damage as the arrow, so luckily for me, I wasn't missing out on anything. Now, I feel like this video is getting a little repetitive, but this time we're fighting a thin, tall knight who uses a sword, so we're stepping into all new territory here. Actually, we do get her twin swords and a healing spell, so while I'm not a particularly holy guy, I'm kinda interested to see if it's actually worth it or not. To use it though, we first have to get damaged, and right now we're rolling through pretty effortless. Well, now we can try it out, and I guess it's cool, but for some reason I really thought this was gonna look more epic than it did. Anyways, we still have to finish her off, which means I have to do more sitting in the back and poking. Lucky me. Do you like dragon slaying? Do you like armor? Then you'll probably like the Dragon Slayer armor. Real talk though, I have no clue what this thing is, but I do know he has one of the best weapons in the game, plus a shield, which is always nice to see. Now, as you probably assumed, this guy was an absolute cakewalk, and even though I thought he was resistant to lightning damage, that Ash of War straight up obliterated him, so from here I just started spamming R1 over and over, which let me finish him off pretty easily. We have to take on the best dad in the world now, Oceiros the Consumed King, who has the Moonlight Greatsword and White Dragon Breath. Now, we finally have a spell that can deal mediocre damage, so that's a really huge bonus, but I of course want to have a go at the big man with my blue sword, and oh my golly, this weapon art absolutely tears through his health bar. And doesn't eat through too much FP, though I forgot to give myself any Ash in Estus, so we're gonna have to switch over to the R2, which takes away from our durability instead, just like the old Dark Souls 1 days. This move actually shot out a little beam too, and did really respectable damage, but I wasn't gonna use it all because I needed to save some charge for phase 2. However, that's when I remembered there was no phase 2, and I was just an idiot who's gone too long without playing Dark Souls 3. Speaking of going too long without playing Dark Souls 3, we have champion Gundyr up next, who of course has his halberd and a ring called the Prisoner's Chain, which boosts some stats while making you take more damage. Which I personally wouldn't wear, but hey, some people are into that. Now, I only have 1 minute of footage to work with here, which isn't a lot, but I walked in and hit him with the 1-2-3 combo. From there, I dodged and used my weapon art, which made me charge in to deal 512 damage. That made him pretty mad though, so we started going a little faster, but not fast enough to miss my stagger, which let me get a few easy shots and finish up this little battle. After all these easy fights, I'm ready to take on a challenging boss again, and the big strong prince and his frail brother are a good candidate for that. Now, we get each of their swords. One is fire and one is white. I don't really know what you call that. To start, I tried out the weapon art, and holy moly, that's a lot of damage. Now, I knew these guys weren't packing as much as the average dude, but this is an abysmal amount of health. Now, since his brother is riding on him, we can actually hit them both from the back and damage the two of them at the same time, which makes my job so much easier. And after a few hits, his brother decided to lay down for a little bit and leave his little bro open, so I beat the crap out of him because I don't care if he's an underweight runt. The big man is getting back up though, so I switched to the small white stick, which is what they used to call me. Luckily, he already had half his health gone, so I just repeated the strategy and beat the crap out of the frail dude one more time. Now, while we could move on to the DLC, there's still a Nameless King somewhere up in the sky that we have to beat, and honestly, I've been looking forward to this fight since the beginning of this video. See, this is the only boss soul that gives you 3 items: the Storm Curved Sword, the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear, and Lightning Storm Spell. Now, I didn't even know the Storm Curved Sword existed, and it turned out to be way better than the spear for the second phase, so that caught me off guard. However, for the first phase, the long pointy stick is always the way to go because its range basically guarantees you a headshot and decently quick stagger, especially when he's breathing fire. Now I decided to pop the weapon art here to finish off phase 1 because it looks way cooler, and that brings us to an almost seamless transition to phase 2. And as I previously stated, the curved sword is pretty good here. Not only does it let you get a ton of hits in, but it also builds up stagger pretty fast, which gave me the perfect opportunity to use the spell, which was pretty sad compared to the other 2 weapons, but that's okay because I like cutting up the Nameless King anyway. Now, if we want to access the Ring City, we first have to get the Ashes of Ariandel because I want to knock out all the DLCs back to back. However, to do that, I have to get through the hell that is Sister Friede because I have to deal with the 3 phases, which, even with overpowered items, is still a pretty tough challenge, though I get to use her scythes and a wilted tree branch, which kinda seems like an afterthought, but turned out to be really good. Plus, it can cast miracles you have equipped, though I can't use this one because I accidentally left it on from the last fight. Either way, I started with the stick, which was melting through her health bar faster than my breakfast in the morning. That pretty much just stun-locked her until phase 2 though, and that's where the big daddy woke up, screamed, and started trying to touch me, which I didn't take kindly to. So I went for the lady sitting in the corner who just got absolutely disrespected by a literal tree branch. Like, she literally couldn't execute a single attack, and I even got a fancy bleed proc at the end, which was nice though. We still had phase 3, and I haven't used the scythe yet, so after letting her do her thing, I popped my weapon art and absolutely obliterated her health bar. She went invisible after that, which is what most women do when they're around me, but she quickly reappeared so I could hit her with the R1 combo, which is really fancy looking, and let me finish her off with 4 Estus left. However, I don't want to be giving myself a pat on the back here too soon because I still have to deal with the Demons in Pain and Demon Prince dudes, and it's not looking too good for us. Because these guys are quite literally fire in a slightly coherent shape, and the weapons are the Demon Scar, which deals only fire damage, and a Pyromancy, which also deals only fire damage. Now, I'm sure you know how this went, so I'll keep it short, but basically I had to hit them over and over again, dealing minute amount of damage until they merged so I could kill the big demon guy using the same strategy, while also using the spell just to say I did it. Anyways, I'm going to keep it at that because this would quite literally bore you to death. So we're going to take a fun detour to Midir, the hardest boss in Soul's history. However, I'm harder because I get to use the Weeb weapon, the Frayed Blade, and the spell, Old Moonlight, which are both really good items. But it's all about how you use them because remember, size doesn't matter. Now, I always like to be on the edge, so I immediately started by going for his head, which paid off, though after he flew away, I went to chase him down again, which kind of backfired because I had to 180 out of there. Now, the spell again wasn't really doing much damage and was really hard to incorporate into my flow anyway, so after exhausting my MP supply, I went full in with my little black katana. Throughout the fight, I was pretty much dealing consistent damage and dodging around his stupid white lasers, but towards the end, I actually got a stagger off, which straight up destroyed him, which I was pretty happy about. We literally have 2 bosses left now, so you might as well just stick around to the end because my school is going to kick me off their Adobe All Access plan at some point once they realize I've been abusing it like this. And those prices make me want to cry into my pillow at night. Luckily for me though, I can cheer up with my boy Gael because I get to use his disappointing sword, which just had to be broken at the end, and his repeating crossbow, which is actually one of the coolest designs in the game. However, these are both objectively good weapons as well, and made me wonder if I was fighting Gael or a homeless dude in the back of a gas station. See, I figured out a strategy where I could get a guaranteed half stagger after 3 hits with the sword, which really was making the old boy show his age, and that basically carried me through phase 1. But he didn't really like that, so he started bloodying his soul all over his longsword. However, just because he has flashy moves doesn't mean he can't be staggered by the old half sword. However, we were about halfway through now and I still haven't used my crossbow, so I quickly switched, got a few hits in, then switched back to pound him some more, which let me finish him off first try. We're finally at the end of this, and oh my god, this was a long script. I put more work into these than my actual English projects, though that's okay because I don't really need that when I already have writing skills like this. Now, as you already know, Soul of Cinder is the final boss of the game, and his boss soul really reflects that because we get the best items in this entire video right now, which are the Firelink Greatsword and Sunlight Spear. Now, I of course start by taking a piss on him with the yellow stream, then running in to whap him with my long coiled sword a couple times. He didn't like that though because he comboed me into oblivion, which had me literally 1 hit away, but I used my indomitable human strength to get back up and drink my beer. Because we're in America, baby, and I like to do things my way. With this burst of motivation, I went ahead and started trading blows like never before, and since I was able to get a few extra attacks between his slow swings, I had him moving on to phase 2 pretty quickly. Now, this phase went about the same besides him finally using his lightning spear, and since I think he has less health here, we were able to take him down down and finally finish off this godforsaken video. Thanks for watching until the end. You paid my bills for the month. Also, thank you for subscribing because we are at like 17,000 now and we are just 3,000 away from reaching 20k, which is mind-blowing to me. Anyways, remember to subscribe to Schooled in the Classics as well. It's me and my dad's channel where we play NES games and it's really fun. Thank you to my channel members and bye!